Hello to the world. We are working on our process inside of Fried Butter Daily. And I think one of the things that's been really interesting is we've allowed our writers to self-assign all of their articles, which has been pretty cool because, they're obviously really excited to write them, but has also been really stressful because there's a couple articles that no one's excited to write. So then they just don't get written. And then the day before it's supposed to go out, we're still working on writing them. So that's kind of the struggle that we've been working through. And right now we're trying to come up with a system to where they'd always be working in advance. So that's what's on my mind, working through that problem. It's not all sunshines and rainbows over here. Sometimes we got to work through issues, but that's just part of it.
Yeah, and I think the enthusiasm of the writers signing up for those articles has been really awesome. But as it's gone on and on, we just want to make sure it's not always at the top of our heads, because when we launched, obviously we're paying lots of attention and we can afford to manage the self-assigning project. But we want to turn our attention now to some other things like growing our audience, and therefore we need kind of a more automated system. So I think there's trade backs in both ways of managing things. But our job is to figure out how to have the best of both worlds the most effectively that we can.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm really interested to see once we start actually formally assigning after a certain date, how many writers are still going to self-assign themselves articles. Because we've had some really fun content about things like about baseball and about fashion and about really fun topics. So it'll be interesting to see how many pieces are still self-assigned.
I have a feeling it might, if I had to take a guess, I think it might spike up a little bit, because it can seem a little overwhelming when you're picking articles that are going to be due in a couple of days, whereas when you have the time to look ahead, I think that will actually increase participation.
I would agree with that.
Also increase procrastination. So we are going to have to make sure we have a way of managing that.
So there's two due dates. There's the due date that's assigned to the writer, and then the due date that's assigned to the editor. And yeah, that's another thing we should keep in mind too, is making sure that we're diligent about making sure we actually get the articles on time for the editing process. Because I think that's been our biggest challenge, hasn't it, Sarah?
Yes, absolutely. Well, because I'll go in and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll build tomorrow's, it's fine. And then we're missing 2 out of 3 pieces. And now I got to go hunt some writers down and say, did you write that? Is it somewhere? Please tell me it's somewhere. So, I'm excited to have that be a little bit more streamlined, where everything's there and everyone knows where everything is, and get more of an established routine around this.
Yeah, and I think it's actually going to be funny, because it's like, I think we're going to come full circle where we're going to get so on top of our stuff, like we'll be weeks ahead. But then what we'll do is we'll start actually finding stories that are super current relevant, and then like switching out articles for like super relevant and up to speed news, like ahead of everyone else. And then just like
being prepared gives you the luxury of being spontaneous.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're not being like, so, and that's an important distinction too, because right now we're not being spontaneous, we're being impulsive. Because it's like, oh crap, we have to get this done immediately. Like, that's an impulsive move. But like being like, wow, it'd be so cool to show our audience this super insider information that only we have access to. Like, the founder of Google just personally called me and told me this thing that no one knows. Like, we can break the story. That would be spontaneous. But the article that we knew had to be written for the last 2 weeks hasn't been written yet, and it's due tomorrow. That's an example of impulsivity and not spontaneity. So we want to work on having the luxury of being spontaneous, which I think requires us to kind of have our stuff put together.
We'll get there. We're getting there.
That's the challenge of the week.
That's the challenge of the week, is getting ahead enough to be able to afford the luxury of spontaneity, which we all pretty much just got back from our Thanksgiving weekend. So I think we're all feeling a little more up to the task. At least I know I am. So.
For sure.
Yep. It's always good to also take breaks every now and again, breathe, and then come back at it. So Well, I think that's about all I have to say today.
Thanks again for watching, everybody.
You
Absolutely.
guys have anything?
Great day.
Oh yeah, make sure and subscribe to Fried Butter Daily, the email, by going to friedbutterdaily.com. And all of those articles are written by our writers. So if you decide that you want to get content written by Content Cucumber, the same writers that write that will be writing your articles, and they're that same quality too. It's pretty awesome. So everyone have a great day, and as always,